Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. I'm happy to have him in studio with me here this morning. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
Had some work this weekend near Stretch Island. Can you tell us anything more about what's been happening?
I know that's kind of been in the news here. A few weeks ago we had a person who went missing, and in the water up in Allen area. It's possible it might be that individual, but we always wait till our coroner is completely done and has the results for us. So that's where it's sitting right now. It's challenging for us when we get called out on those things because it takes overtime hours. And as you know, we were told if we use overtime hours, we're going to lose staff. Well, do you go out and do what you should do, or don't you? And then we went out on that search. We're unable to locate the person, and then this call came in. So along with the fire department and our folks went out there and retrieved the body. So they're waiting now for identification.
Do you have divers out in the waters too to look for this?
We didn't have
to do that.
Not diver technically in the water looking, but people suit up when they go into the water characteristically to pull somebody out. But I don't know exactly what our guys had on that day to come out.
Still very cold and treacherous even for the dive units.
Yeah, I mean, and no kidding, you were out there with us when we did the jump in the water.
The polar plunge.
And people don't realize that I spent 14 years on a rescue dive team doing this, and even at that, people have a really hard time understanding how cold that water is and how it affects you. And like when you dove in out there, you realize it's cold, and a lot of times what happens is people hit that first water hits them and they inhale and they draw that water in quickly, and that doesn't help. I mean, it drowns people quickly.
Yeah.
But that water's so cold, and so it's a challenge when you're around the Hood Canal in the ocean. People just don't understand how cold that is.
It's not a funny thing, but we were joking that the outside air temperature was about what it was in the water when we were doing that jump to kind of help us understand it a little better, but still.
I actually did that one year when we were up in Hoodsport, one of the first years we did that, and the outside temperature, the water temperature was warmer than the outside temperature, so when you got out, it freeze on you, and I've dove in water. We had to break through the ice and come up out of the water too. So, but that's so cold. It's tough for people to realize that until they've been in there.
It is really cold. Last week I had heard, or we had talked about it a couple weeks ago, that the contract between the city and the county for the jail, that contract has been signed. Is that right?
Yes, I think we're going to come on together with Chief Moody and I are going to come on in the next week or so.
Oh, that'll be fun, yeah. Okay.
It was going to be last week. Again, the challenge behind that is it's tough for people to understand. It's the sheriff runs the operation of the jail. The sheriff does not. The jail building is the county's.
Okay.
I don't manage the building process and that kind of stuff. I manage the operations on the inside, or my chief. And so the jail simply, it's full. I think when we get this done, this has been a 6 months project that has been turned into a 3-year project outside of my control. Sheriff's office not managing that piece, but we've been able to turn a 6-month project into a 3-year project. So now we're just about getting ready to be able to use that jail space, those extra 20 beds, which will put us, I believe, right at 94, if I'm not mistaken, but it's 92 or 94. And the day it opens, the jail's full. But we did contract with the city. I run those contracts as the sheriff. We don't have to do that. The city could get their own jail if they'd like one. But it is the county jail, and we've always contracted with the city. And there are some things going back and forth, and we felt like we could have used that space to do other contract work and probably make some money off of it. But it wouldn't be. People don't know. The bad guys don't know the city from the county line.
Sure, no.
And so they wander in and out. So Chief Moody's folks end up with somebody. We want to make sure that we take those people in and keep the community safe. So we contracted a number of beds just for the city, so they have some place, so they don't have to spend their officers' time driving all the way to Lewis County each time they make an arrest. That would be pretty inefficient.
So if there are, I think I heard 7 maybe beds that are city specific. So does that mean there are 7 there and they may or may not be filled with folks from the county?
Those are for the city.
Okay.
And if they go over that, they have to pay an additional fee. So it's kind of blocked out for the city's use. That way, the city always knows how many beds that they're contracted. It's just a much more efficient way, in my opinion, of doing it. The city knows that they have jail space, because if we didn't block that out, so to speak, and we just filled it with county inmates, And then when the city makes an arrest, sorry, take him to Lewis County. They're going to drive 45 minutes to an hour down there, hour back plus the booking time. Half a shift is gone. And so we've been able to work that out with the city. We would have been in last week. Last Wednesday, we were going to come in. And the challenging part for us is it's been great working with Chief Moody on these projects. Glad he's down there. What happens is we had the contract viewed, ready to go through our legal. We sent it down to the city. The city signed it. And some other county government people got involved and changed the contract after it was signed. And when people get involved in micromanaging things that have never been in a jail or don't know anything about it and want to make changes after the contract's signed, that's not okay to sign a contract with somebody and then change it. So we've got that all worked out now, and the city contract came up. I signed it the other day, and it'll be put into place, and we'll be in with Chief Moody and perhaps the city administrator and my jail chief maybe this week or next week to talk about it.
Great. Let's see, we got some other things to talk about here. You guys always are getting lots of accolades from not only civic organizations, but just people, everyday citizens. And you get nice letters written all the time, right?
Well, this one, I'm going to tell you, I wrote.
Okay.
And this is because this jail process, we have an employee by the name of Jeff Rabel that came into this. It was hired by the county to come in and work on these projects. And in my opinion, Jeff inherited a nightmare. This jail project has been a mess for 3 years.
Originally, the parks, parks and recreation.
It's been passed
moved
around
into buildings as well.
We've had finance managers and HR directors and everybody else managing construction projects that don't have that experience.
Right.
And Jeff was brought in and he was given a mess. And I will tell you that I wrote a letter for Jeff last week to thank him and our jail command staff to thank him for coming in and finally having somebody organized to put this project together. And I think the nicest part that I like about Jeff is that he's a person that listens. We've all worked in jails. Other people that were managing the project never been in a jail, or maybe once or twice in a jail, and didn't know anything about it. And we've tried to bring up comments, and they wouldn't be listened to, and then 6 months later it cost thousands of dollars in an error that nobody would listen to. And now we're able to express our concerns as people that run jails to Jeff. He takes that into consideration and he fixes it. And so we just want to recognize Jeff Rabel for just a wonderful job he's done to really take a ball of a mess and getting it straightened out. Thanks, Jeff. So I read that letter to the commission last week, but I want to recognize Jeff.
Yeah, he seems, we've talked with him on the air here. Seems like a real nice, positive guy, ready to work hard.
We are so glad we have him. He's done a great job since he's been here. I have a second one here that really came into the sheriff's office. As I read through it, actually this letter it goes out to the dispatch center, and so it doesn't have a name on it, but it came in sent to me. A person called in and rather frantic with a number of things going on, and it says in there they were reassured that things would be okay when they called back and things had settled down, that the person on the other line they put from the sheriff's office, but actually the dispatch center, heard back from the individual, and they just took care of everything over the phone and got everything settled down for that person. And they took the time to, it says that they took a difficult experience and it was terribly stressful and made it less stressful, and I will always remember that. My respect and gratitude to your office. Well, this actually, reading through that, it goes out to the dispatchers. They handled that before our deputy even got there, and so I will send that down to Director Evans for his staff, and he can figure out which dispatchers or what call that came from. But what a wonderful job. Dispatch is really part of our team because they're the lifeline, and they get us there and get us back, and people don't realize the amount of work that they do over the phone sometimes before we even arrive on scene.
Thousands of calls. We talk about call logs, call volume. Thousands of calls come in every year, but they're able to take each one of. They have to take each one of these calls as an individual and give it the 100% attention that it deserves.
Yeah,
people's lives are on the line.
And it's just kind of like looking in your station. You had a lot of things that I'm unfamiliar with that you're looking around, your gauges and volume meters and all kinds of things in here that I wouldn't know what to do. When you walk into a dispatch center, they've got the same kind of screens you have and things, but they've got 2 or 3 lines coming, and then sometimes the dispatcher's on the radio with one of us. They're on the 911 call. They're taking another call in. Fire's now calling in. They've got all these things going on that on the outside, or when you're listening on a scanner, you don't hear all the rest of it. Right. You're hearing a one-side conversation or one piece of a conversation going back and forth each half. When they've got 5 or 6 conversations going on, they could all be emergency conversations. It is really takes a lot of talent to be able to separate those and keep track. And they just do a remarkable job. When I was at Thurston County, when you started over there, part of your indoctrination was you worked the dispatch center. And they would sit you down at a screen and you'd take the 911 calls. And in a few minutes, you could have, in a matter of seconds, you could have 3 or 4 calls, 5 or 6 calls, and the screen would split. So it would show the next 911 call. And all of a sudden, you're by yourself with 7 or 8 people on the phone. And you're trying to get back to each one of them. It's a lot of work. So that letter, I think, is... It was wonderfully that it was written, but it actually doesn't go to the sheriff. It goes to the dispatch center.
When there is an event that a lot of people are either near to or witness, and they all call 911, you still have to go through each one of those phone calls and either tell the person that crews are responding to that scene or make sure that they're talking about the same thing that other folks are talking about?
Yes. If it's anything from a traffic accident, line down, a suspicious person in the roadway, and you're getting cell phone calls one after the other, or people calling from businesses, those are all coming in. And they have call takers, and that call taker is responsible for that information. And generally, I'd have to have the director tell you exactly how this works down here. But then it goes to the dispatcher who's dispatching out that information. And I think, if I'm not correct on this, I think... the director's objective is to, within 30 seconds of the time the call's in, it's being dispatched. So sometimes they're on the call trying to give out the location and the brief synopsis of the incident as quickly as they can to get us turned in the right direction and moving. And then as we're heading to those calls, that information is developing. So they're constantly feeding you that information as the circumstances change. It's really challenging. And when you're on the other end, you really depend on those dispatchers.
Wow.
They do a great job.
Got a Sheriff's Breakfast coming up in April. Going to talk about the Special Olympics torch run. Tell me about this.
Yes. Well, you have actually, I wrote the dates down for you over there. Here's what we're going to have.
June 1st for that one.
Yeah. In April, for the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Breakfast, we are working for the first time ever to have the Special Olympics torch run come through Mason County. It's never been here before.
Wow.
Law enforcement is the largest sponsor of Special Olympics in the world, all law enforcement agencies worldwide. Huh. And we are going to be on that day inviting our Special Olympians from Mason County to that breakfast. And we're going to be honoring our Special Olympics Olympians with the law enforcement agencies in the region on that day to promote the Special Olympics. We'll be selling T-shirts. I'll be doing all kinds of stuff to raise money for Special Olympics. And then the next month, it'll be just after that, the following month, we'll be doing the torch run. I think I have that written down.
Yeah, June 1. June 1st.
And we'll be running. I think right now we're meeting this week with a great friend of mine. Actually, be speaking this Friday at the breakfast. Rex Caldwell is a retired police chief, and Rex is the president of Washington State Special Olympics. Rex will be our keynote speaker and talking about what Special Olympics does. If you've never seen it, it's a great presentation.
Yeah.
And we'll have our Special Olympians, and we're just going to have breakfast with law enforcement and our Special Olympians, and also not to leave them out because they'll be running with us somewhere in there, is our other emergency service, our firefighters. So we'll be getting Chief Burbridge and suiting him up for a couple-mile run or something. So
that sounds like a great idea.
I had one more, Jeff, on a recognition that I want to put out. I thought it was kind of interesting. You don't hear his name very often. Phil Berg is an employee of the sheriff's office, and he delivers all our legal documents and legal papers throughout the county. And Phil just does an incredible job. And I have a whole page here written by a person about Phil on what we call civil standby to deliver paperwork, and notes in here that Phil was dealing with this on Thanksgiving Day. So I thought it was interesting that this person wrote in, and at the end it said, once again, I'd like to thank Officer Berg for being a compassionate human being and not just an officer of the law. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having such a great officer on your staff. Phil worked that whole thing out, but it was on Thanksgiving. So what a wonderful job Phil does. And I would just reach out because a lot of people don't know Phil, but he's the one handing out all these papers. Most people run when they see Phil coming.
Sure.
There's some kind of a document, but he does a great job for us. So that was a beautiful letter for Phil.